Hello world, my name is Ben and this is AnyLogic 101, a video series where I explore quick tips and tricks about AnyLogic. Today I want to talk about Lambda expressions, and that might mean nothing to you, or it might be completely familiar depending on when and how you learn programming. Typically these days it is absolute commonplace, and 10-15 years ago when I learned programming, not so much. So it's a modern thing, you should know about it, you should be using it. But what is it actually? Let's have a look. So I've got a very simple model here where I have an agent type myAgent. Each agent has a value which is random between 0 and 100. I also give them a Boolean flag to either be counted or not. So think of it like male or female separation. So it's true or false. And on main, I've embedded a population, 100 of my agents. Now what I want to do is I want to get the sum of all values across that population and show it in this little text. Now, in the old days, you'd have to write, you'd have to use your own function and write a for loop for each agent in this population. Please sum the value of that individual agent. So it's at least 3 lines of code. And if you actually want to print it directly here, it would be you would need to bypass it with a function. So I don't want to do that. And Lambda expressions allow you to write 1 line of code and do the same thing. So there is a function called just sum, S-U-M, in AnyLogic. It's based on Java, but you have it in AnyLogic. It wants 2 arguments, collection and value, and the syntax of those Lambda expressions is always very similar. First, it wants to know across which population of agents or which collection of objects should I do something, sum in this case, and we're going to say please do sum across that population, and now it wants to know what to sum. And here the notation gets a little bit weird, but you get used to it. So you specify a local variable. I just call it A for agent in this case. And I'm going to say in agent, now it knows A is a myAgent agent type. So I've got a handle with code complete on my value. And now this is all. Now this little bit of code here is summing my value across all agents in that population. Let's have a look. And there we go. It's automatically summed the value of all those 100 myAgent agents. 4,500. Okay. But with Lambda expressions, you can do many more cool things. So sum is just one of those. Let's sum only the agents where we have do count me to be true. Remember, they are randomly set to false and true. So in this case, I'm not going to use sum, but I'm going to use sum where. Again, we need to say which collection. We need to say what do you want to sum. And in this case, if you saw the code complete, it wants a 3rd argument as well. Sorry. And the 3rd one is the condition. So the condition in this case would be just count those where A is where the do count me is equal to 2. See if that works. So we'd expect a smaller value now. And there we go. So we've summed only the true ones now. If we would sum only the false ones, it would be the rest of those 2. So somewhere is another very useful one. There's simpler ones as well. There is one called count. Same thing. Tell it which population to count across. And then you can give it a condition, but you don't have to give it a condition. You could also just count all of them, but typically you want to count it. So in this case, you would say just count those where where the do count me is, let's in this case count all those where it's false. Count only false. And we'll see how many false agents we have. 55. There are other things. There is functions like max. I can actually show you. I've got a little list here. So this will give you the maximum agent, or the agent in a people collection that has the highest income in this case. There is average. There's average where a couple of other ones. Filter and find all are also quite interesting. So with filter, it will not return a value to you like sum or somewhere or count. These return doubles. But filter will actually give back a list. So if you say, please filter all my agents where, well, only filter for those that do count me to be true. If I compile this now, it will throw an error because, oh no, it won't actually. Well, with this filter function, we have a list now. So it's not going to give me a value. It's not going to give me a function. It's going to give me a list of all the agents that have that condition true. So with that list, you can do all sorts of things. In this case, we could just convert it to a string to actually see it printed. And you can see now it's basically listing all the agents that have that condition to true. So Lambda functions are very, very useful, very powerful, because first they save you just coding lines, so it's typically easier to read. It's very useful for those one-line code blocks like in text and stuff, to quickly get a value and not go bypass via a function. But it's also good for readability. So once you get used to them, you can actually understand them much quicker than a for loop or a nested for loop and that kind of stuff. And it's a modern way of coding. So you should get used to it and start using them. AnyLogic help has a little bit on Lambda functions as well. So do check that out. Thanks a lot.